Good afternoon, everyone. We are so excited that you're here. We're going to give it about 30 seconds before we kick it off. In the meantime, as you settle in, if you wouldn't mind, there is a poll that we have open. Our product team is looking to ever evolve and make things better and easier for teachers. So while we have the next 20 to 30 seconds or so, if you would mind clicking on that poll and providing us some thoughts on that, we would greatly appreciate it. And like I said, we'll get started in about 15 to 20 seconds now. Kathleen and William are like, it is a long 15 seconds.
All good. It's probably longer for those that just had a full day in a classroom. So
that is
we're
absolutely true. Well, with that said, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to our live discussion this afternoon. We are joined today by educators from Jefferson County Public Schools in Kentucky, who will discuss how their district uses asynchronous video to improve communication, flip classrooms, and personalize learning. As William just mentioned, you have all had a school day already, so we are so thankful and excited that you have taken time right after a school day to join us. Before we dive in, though, I want to take a moment to introduce myself and my fellow panelists. My name is Sean Conway, and I am the Director of Customer Solutions here at Screencastify. I'll be driving our session today. Previously, prior to coming here, I was a former high school teacher, department chair, and assistant principal for several years. With me today from JCPS, our Executive Director of Technology, William Pierce, and Technology Specialist, Dr. Kathleen Receiver. Would love to kick it over to you both for some quick intros. William, would you mind starting us off, sharing a little bit about yourself and your role, please?
Sure. Thank you so much, Sean. My name is William Pierce. I'm the Executive Administrator of our IT3 Technology Department here in Jefferson County Public Schools in Louisville, Kentucky. I was a classroom teacher for about a decade at one of our inner city Title I schools that really helped kind of shape my vision in the powers of technology and really being an accelerator for great pedagogy and taking those next steps in blended learning and everything else on down the line. Our team really works. We have a three-pronged model within Jefferson County, and our team in particular is our innovation team. We work to really make technology work for education. So we have some great colleagues who make technology work, but we really translate it into education and really empowering our teachers to support our students in taking that next step. Thank you.
Thanks, William. Kathleen, would you mind telling us a little bit about your role at JCPS?
Sure. Thanks, Sean. My name is Kathleen Receiver, and I am one of three of the technology specialists within our IT3 innovation branch here in JCPS. And through our role, we are digital administrators. And so we work to develop and model best practices that allow for innovative instructional design through systematic thinking with our school principals and assistant principals. So we are working directly with, I work directly with 58 schools leaders to help them with their strategies and processes for instructional technology.
Thank you, Kathleen, and thank you again, William. Selfishly, I am quite lucky being a part of your team. I have had the pleasure of working with you both and with JCPS now for a couple of years. And so even from the outside perspective, I have some unique visibility, I think, into the amazing work that you're both doing to support your teachers and staff throughout JCPS. So thank you both again for being here. And thank you to everyone for, again, joining us this afternoon to learn about asynchronous video and some of the really amazing things that JCPS is doing. Audience members, as we continue on through our conversation today, please do feel free to share any comments and questions in the chat. And as I mentioned at the top, we do have a poll open. Please feel free to drop some thoughts in there as we go in. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. At Screencastify, as many of you know, our mission is to provide educators and students with the video tools they need to create content and also assess student learning. Now, of course, learning environments and the need for new technology have evolved and accelerated dramatically, especially over the last few years. And Screencastify is evolving with them. So with that in mind, we'd love to jump in. And William, I'm going to ask you to kick us off with our first question here. And then Kathleen, I'll ask you for additional insights after. Why do you think it is so important to give teachers the tools to be able to create across different mediums for your students? William, I'd love for you to start us off.
Yeah, thank you. So most of my answers are going to be more from the district perspective, whereas I'll defer to Kathleen. She was a fantastic teacher and definitely better than myself. So I'll let her use her expertise. But from a district perspective, we always talk about our teachers and differentiation and things of that nature, really working to meet students in their needs. Well, our teachers have those same needs. Our staff have those same needs. So we really, as we talk about differentiation, it's not just for our students. So allowing our teachers to have a toolkit that allows them to reach their students in a variety of ways has been significantly beneficial. And adding to that, we have also been able to incorporate Screencastify district-wide. So it really creates that boundaries for our teachers to where it doesn't matter what school you're at, you still have this product in your tool belt. And it really helps us move from being a district of schools into a true school district where we have that fluidity and teachers can move and still use the same things rather than starting over on a regular basis.
Thanks, William. Really great start. And I think that provides some awesome context into how JCPS views the application of tools district-wide. Kathleen, you and I have had a lot of conversations over the years. In terms of giving teachers the tools they need to best serve students, how do you approach that from your role, knowing how hands-on you are with your teachers and then by default your students as well?
Well, I think that the giving the teachers the different tools helps them to feel empowered to be able to use whatever they feel most comfortable with their students, but also by having many different tools for creation, that also gives opportunities for our students as well to, for one, many times teach our teachers how to use those tools. But because we have so many different tools, it really does, like William said, it caters to those diverse needs of our teachers. Some might feel more comfortable with one tool versus another. So by having several different tools that they can choose from their toolbox, it really does, like I said, I think it promotes the engagement from our teachers, but then also in turn turns to our students' engagement and understanding as well.
Thank you for that. And it's always been so refreshing, talking to you and to William about kind of the philosophical approach to what you want to provide teachers and students with, so that they can go execute to best serve their students. And I think that's a great transition to the next question, which is really revolving around video changing your teacher's approach to more personalized learning. And Kathleen, for this one, as William mentioned, with the actual classroom perspective, when you think about video in terms of how your teachers and their approach to those individual students, I've heard a lot from you both about the way that JCPS thinks about that. But how do you think video has helped change some of those teachers' approach?
Well, I think it's important to mention that learning in the digital age means that learning can happen at any time and anywhere. And so this has changed because teachers are now able to meet those individualized needs of our students by having maybe a recording of a quick lesson or something that they taught that many students did not understand, and being able to load that to our LMS, our learning management system, for students to watch later. Also by different interests, so differentiation, of course, but then also by different interests for our students, teachers are able to easily use video to capture maybe some information for a group of students and then a different set of information for a different group. So I think that it's just so important for teachers to have that opportunity and this tool to be able to do those things.
Great. Thanks, Kathleen. And William, I'd love to kick it over to you. And when you're considering kind of those decisions in the conversations that you're in, how does video play a role with understanding those teachers and their change to approach the last few years?
Well, I think all of us, any teacher would argue that the most important thing in your classroom is going to be your relationships with your students. And through the video, through, being able to see your teacher, and to Kathleen's point, really extending it beyond the classroom allows that relationship to facilitate the learning outside, to where a student might not feel like they're on their own answering those homework questions or finishing up that project from school or whatever else. So it really kind of takes the classroom and expands it not only from a content perspective, but also obviously from that relationship perspective. I think that's been a big part of what it is. And then we as a district have really tried to model that for our teachers. We have our superintendent and several other of our principals actually create their own videos to share out and share asynchronously with our staff, to really allow them to see what can be done within these perspectives, and really in terms of moving forward and providing those individualized supports and putting a face to the text, which is always beneficial.
That when you both share with me that you have your superintendent, who is one of the actual top users in the entire JCPS group, I mean, it's incredible. And I think that from as we've all talked about, from a leadership standpoint, and that kind of displaying of behavior not only sets a really strong tone, but it's also just good practice. Like when your superintendent puts that information out there, then it's fulfilling the same goals and needs that you are when your teachers are serving your students and so on. So I think that has always been one of my favorite examples that JCPS does. And I think that's also a nice transition into our next kind of topic and question, which I've always been thoroughly impressed with your approach to learning in general. But what you've shared, at least over the last couple of years, is the kind of very conscious and considerate way in which you are tackling blended learning and within your one-on-one environment. And so, Kathleen, can you tell us a little bit about some systems that JCPS has implemented to help execute strong blended learning in the one-on-one environment that you all operate in?
Sure. So as many of you probably know, blended learning is any formal educational program that allows a student to learn, at least in part, through online learning. So, and the biggest part of that too that I love is it also has control over time, place, and path for the students. So some of the systems that we have in place, first, our entire district uses the same LMS, learning management system, which is Google Classroom. So teachers are able to upload the videos for their students inside their Google Classroom to keep those organized. And so that's a system that students know where to go. Also, our content creation tools, we have many district digital content creation, digital tools that teachers and students can use, and they know that they can use those tools within their classroom. So that's important to really build that strong blended learning. And then another thing is having the common assessment tools and feedback system. So for any blended learning environment, you want to make sure that your assessment system that you have in place at your school is common amongst the school. And also you're giving feedback to your students in a way where they know how to get the feedback and where to go to get the feedback. Another thing that I really love with Screencastify and ensuring that our students have access is the closed captioning. So making sure that all of our learners are able to listen, read, and follow along with the videos is something that's very important as well.
Thanks, Kathleen. William, from your angle, what are you thinking about in terms of when some of those systems are both being considered for implementation, but then when they're actually in process of kind of being rolled out to help execute those strong learning environments?
Yeah, so Kathleen kind of spoke to the classroom-based systems and school-based systems, and kind of stepping back, we look at the systems that allow those things to happen. And exactly as you mentioned, in a one-to-one environment, we have what is called JCPS, every one-to-one. Our district has made a commitment in which all students are assigned a device directly to them. We have about 80,000 plus LTE enabled Chromebooks in our district as well, to which when students take those home, which is an expectation for our schools, that students remain connected. So it's no longer about students trying to find that access to participate in blended learning. We're ensuring it's there. And that's been a commitment of our CIO and our superintendent, and really putting that into place, and breaking down the digital divide and everything else that might come with it, for a number of reasons, but basically acknowledging it, addressing it, and putting solutions in place to react to it, to ensure everything Kathleen mentioned, our standardized LMS, our approach to student learning, and really, like I said, breaking down those 4 classroom walls to where students can learn anytime, anywhere, using the supports and systems that we have in place.
Thanks, William. And you said a couple things, as Kathleen just did, about kind of the digital divide and breaking down those walls. I've heard from you both a large amount during the times that we've talked about kind of the desire to increase engagement both inside the school and outside the school with parents and communities and different school groups. When you think about video, Kathleen, I'd love for you to weigh in terms of how do you think that video has evolved the parent and trusted adults at home, their visibility into the student learning process, and then the role that they can help in aiding that process?
Yeah, so as a parent myself, video has helped me tremendously with aiding my two children at home. I am a former elementary teacher. I taught math, but I know many of our teachers here that are listening would probably agree it's taught a little bit different than when I was in school, and even more so, it's different than when I taught it to my second and third grade students. So videos for me, for my kids, their teachers do very short 1 minute, 2 minute videos explaining a math concept that they learned in class to make sure that I understand it and am helping my kids the correct way and not teaching them how I did it. So that is one way that it's really helped myself. And I know for other parents as well, the very short, quick videos that teachers can make, it could be to help the student to go back over a concept and or the parents. So that's one way. And then another way that really has helped parents, for example, our district has a digital citizenship curriculum. And so what we did is we used Screencastify to screen record our digital citizenship curriculum and the expectations, the purpose behind it. So we did that on every page of our curriculum, but specifically we made something for parents so they could understand the importance of digital citizenship for their students at home as well as at school. And we've had several principals show that video for their open house night to families, explaining our procedures and process in JCPS for our digital citizenship.
That's incredible. Thanks, Kathleen. William, same question to you. When you think about video and the evolution of parent visibility into their student learning, what role do you think that plays, and how has JCPS thought about that?
Yeah, so one of the big things, obviously, schools are always trying to find ways to involve parents, whether it's historically been the newsletter or sending stuff home in a backpack or whatever else. In my, decade in the classroom, I always kind of joked that sending a paper home with a middle school student was basically like rolling the dice at the craps table. You didn't really know if it was going to get there or not, but you were lucky if it did. So through the use of video, we've seen a lot of our schools been making that transition to where those newsletters are now becoming informational. They're becoming video based, and it's, hey, go to this link or go to our YouTube channel or go to this or that. In fact, Kathleen and I were both working with one of our schools today in setting up a new YouTube channel where they were going to redirect their parents to really improve that communication. So I think from that avenue, it's been magnificent. Just as Kathleen presented, though, from the classroom side, you see that same thing in terms of if I'm a parent and my student's going through trying to get this homework done, sure, I can, Google was probably my best friend for the past decade or so, even to the point that, there was a TV show called Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? And people weren't. These videos obviously are showing the teacher completing the work and showing them step by step, the same way they would for students. We're seeing that exact same thing, and the parents are learning right alongside the kid. And not only, and a lot of times that helps the relationship between the student and parent because they're seeing that struggle go at the same path and working forward within that.
What a great analogy with the Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? And I'd like to add, William, in terms of the about the paper possibly getting home, I'd also like to add the paper getting home without having a bunch of folds and crinkles and it being shoved at the bottom of the bag. That might just be me and my 6-year-old, though probably not. Those responses, in a sense of engaging the parent and at home, I think is a really nice transition into our next question, which you both spoken to a little bit already. JCPS, with the size and scope of what you're all doing, and then the number of people with which need to receive that information. You mentioned your superintendent leads with videos, and as do some of your building principals. That really, I think, just scratches the surface, though. William, when you think about video being used as a communication tool district-wide, how do you think that video has improved your ability to communicate across the district?
Well, it's, to your point, our superintendent uses it, our school principals use it, our teachers use it. But obviously, it really all boils down to if you don't tell your story, somebody else will. And obviously, we can do that through text. We can do that through a variety of avenues. But in 2023, you really have to kind of take the bull by the horns with that. And whether it's on X or Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or whatever else, you have to take control of that narrative and really tell people what you want. You're always going to have naysayers, especially in public education as we are right now. There's going to be people who kind of question what we're doing, and it's all on us to show the excellence that we are doing and that our students are doing and learning and taking those significant steps forward. So video really helps in that, again, because it puts a face to it. It allows us to get our message out to any stakeholder, not just parents, families, whatever else, but really to the larger community and showcase the fantastic things that we are doing.
Thanks, William. I appreciate that response. And I think, Kathleen, curious how you think about this. You being one of three on your team that is supporting a large group. How do you think about video and its ability to improve how communication occurs district-wide?
Yes. So with, like you said, there's three of us, and instructional technology is very important for us to make sure teachers are aware of how it can be used to enhance their lessons. And so teachers are really busy. And one thing this year that I've received feedback on is how much they appreciate the flexibility of how they can build their knowledge and digital agility with the option of having video for asynchronous learning. So we offer several asynchronous lessons that are where I use Screencastify and ask questions throughout the professional learning for them to answer. So that way they can learn while they're in the car rider line after work, and answer those questions and still be able to learn, but also receive that district, mandated professional learning hours. So I think that is one way. And then another way too, we offer our school technology coordinators, we've offered them monthly sessions, which we call Third Thursdays, where they can't all make it because of car rider duty after school or whatever the reason may be. And so we recorded those sessions, and they have to attend that every month. But if they can't come, they could watch the recording, answer the questions throughout to make sure that they've done that. And that would be able to mark their attendance. So a little bit different, like you said, from what William said, but those are two things that come to mind when I think about how the video has helped to improve our district-wide communication, because teachers and schools are still receiving information where they may not have been able to be there in person, but they're still able to receive that same information as their colleagues.
Thanks, Kathleen. And I'm just highlighting like the quality of the actions that you're both doing amongst all the other great educators in JCPS, and that, like you mentioned, the differentiation and the different mediums, not just being for students. It's that learning can't happen anywhere, right? Like in the same way that students learn at home, Kathleen, you just mentioned in the car and in these different settings and situations. And so I think that the way in which JCPS has kind of reached this level of using video in the classroom and beyond is extremely impressive. And I think that you both, along with the district at large, has such a kind of breadth of experience with considering educational software. So William, would love for you to kind of just share some of your experience and how you think about what is most important when you're evaluating both video creation software in an educational setting, but also just software in general. And this could be anything, as we've talked a little bit about features, privacy, shareability. What are some things that you're thinking about?
Thank you. I'll let Kathleen kind of speak to the usability of the product, whereas I'll go a little bit more on the security side. Undoubtedly, K-12 education is the number one targeted cybersecurity area now in the world. Our district, thankfully, is taken a very forward approach to that and really working to protect our data, both our staff, our student data, We even go as far as to say, protect our students, protect our staff, protect our district. And so really it's kind of those protections through data protection agreements and everything kind of on down the line, insurance requirements, an appropriate vetting process that we kind of have overall that we really look for. The last thing we want is a student to be in Jefferson County and do fantastic things with us for a long period of time, and then they go to graduate or get a job or whatever else, and they realize that their data was shared, via us, via a breach of a third party or even internal, and now they're starting over in terms of their credit, their life, their whatever else, or having to do so when really they were just trying to get started. So that's something that we definitely take into effect. And in fact, Screencastify is a fantastic tool for us. And one that we definitely use, but it is not something that we currently allow our students to create with on their own. We do allow them to participate with it via the questions features and everything of that model. And that has been fantastic, as was asked there in the comments, in lieu or in a similar vein of like an ed puzzle. But we don't allow our students to create. Because there aren't those necessary protections that we hold as a requirement as really that baseline. And admittedly, our requirements are very strict in order to do business with us. So from the product perspective in itself, I'll let Kathleen kind of speak to it. But really, we look for things that are presentable and approachable by all students in an equitable fashion, and that all students can participate in and feel confident in as they move forward. So.
Thanks, William. And I think that your response really does highlight the consideration in which the board, which the district administration does value much of what you just said. And I think it is both from our perspective, something that, it's when we get that ability to work with JCPS, it really is an honor. And I'm confident we're going to fix that student piece here in the next little bit. So, but Kathleen, would love to hear from you in terms of when you're considering both video creation software and software in general in the education setting, what are you thinking about and kind of weighing in terms of considerations?
For me and the years of working with teachers and school leaders, the one of the most important things is the ease of access. How easy is it to use, and how easy is it to share the creative video with others? So I think ease of access is really important. And also something else that, Screencastify did and incorporate in, I don't know, a year or so ago, was the ability to force users to stop the video and answer questions. So now teachers can use their Screencastify videos that they've put into their Google Classroom as a way of formatively assessing their kids, because they're able to, stop, make sure they watched it, stop it, and ask a question. I already mentioned this before, but that multiple means of representation is important. Having the ability for the closed captioning, I think that's one of the UDL universal designs of learning. Like, that's very important to have that ability. And then also analytics. Yes, they can answer a question in between a video, but what analytics and what data does the teacher get from that? Because if we're not checking the data that our students are doing, then there's, what's the purpose of having them do something if we're not going to go back and see? So I think those are probably like my top important things to look for. But another one that has really been popular is the editing tools for teachers to be able to go back or actually the teachers, when we had our seminar last week, when teachers were able to learn that they could pause the video as they're recording if a dog barks or they mess up, and then, start recording again, was huge. That's a big time saver. So the editing tools are also really important for teachers as well.
Thanks, Kathleen. It's so good to hear in terms of the consideration of how the teacher and student use of the tool in terms of practicality is considered. And I think that is a nice kind of launch pad into the next topic, and which is our last formal question. And then we have about a few more minutes left. And then there's an audience question that I'd love for you both to chime in on. But the last formal question that I'd love to hear, Kathleen, you speak to first, if you would, in terms of video evolving to become even more powerful for students and teachers to create content. How do you foresee video being more valuable in terms of what needs to happen, maybe both with the practice in terms of the logistics, but maybe also with the tool itself? Where do you see that going in the future?
Well, I see, with the analytics, AI powered. I see AI playing a big part in this, especially with, having some AI powered assessment features built in. I think that is probably where we're going next. Also, gamification and for students to be able to interact within the videos, not just by answering a question, but how can we make videos to where students complete a video and that gives them a badge, or there's some type of gamification built into that. I think that is something that we will probably, go to, or I would like to see anyways. And then as far as the interactive, clickable, the quiz questions, yes, but maybe clickable elements or content, making it more interactive for the student as they're watching the different videos.
Thank you, Kathleen. And William, from your perspective, how do you think that the evolution in terms of impact on the future, what are you considering for that?
Well, I think good, bad, or indifferent. Our society, I think, is trending towards living in 30-second video clips in itself. So, as that attention span moves on, how do we work within that environment? Obviously, for students in itself, video provides a significant opportunity for a new formative assessment tool, or an assessment tool in general, whereas they can actually talk through their learning rather than just showing it on a paper, the old show your work style of math problems. One of the things that we have here in Jefferson County is what we call our backpack of success skills, which is effectively a dissertation for kids. At 5th, 8th, and 12th grade, they have to demonstrate their learning as to how they've been successful over the past couple of years. And they have to have artifacts, they have to do all of these things. So through video, obviously they can record themselves, they can watch themselves, and it culminates being reflective, obviously within those videos, but it culminates with actually a live presentation to which they're presenting in front of a panel of staff members, district and school-based staff. So it really allows them to kind of take those next steps in preparation for that final and culminating project, which is, again, very powerful for our students.
That sounds extremely powerful, and how exciting to be able to have that, and then the students to be able to have that type of experience and example. That kind of brings us to that was the conclusion of our last formal question. There were several really good ones that were submitted. We only have time for one, though, unfortunately. Would love for William, for you to share how the district should do this, and then Kathleen from how a teacher should do this. And so one of the questions that came in was if people have not really used video regularly, how would you recommend any main tips and pointers if a district and then a teacher respectively was going to start using video more regularly? William, what should a district be thinking about if they really didn't have a ton of history with some type of universal video tool? What should they be thinking about?
Well, I would say, and it pains me to say it, but I would probably start with your legal teams and everything else, making sure that it is within the appropriate boundaries of your district. Obviously, video is a very, very powerful tool, but it's also something that we need to understand the power of it to potentially be on the negative side. So really understanding how to harness it in an appropriate way, and then allowing from a district perspective there to both be models within the districts on how to take those steps and how to innovate in terms of moving forward, but also allowing your teachers and your staff to take the risk to do so, and doing so with grace, understanding that the first time for anything is not always going to be successful. And a teacher or a staff member shouldn't feel like they screwed up or got dinged or whatever else, should they try something out and it not be as successful as it once could have been. You really have to be able to walk before you can run. And I think helping your teams understand that is really what you could do from a district level and taking those steps forward.
Thanks, William. And Kathleen, if a teacher came to you and said, hey, Kathleen, I've not really ever used video, but I want to commit to using it regularly, what would you tell them?
I would tell them, I've actually worked with a few on this exact thing. They need to have a template written out, typed out, whatever, knowing how long they want the video to be. Time is of essence, but also what topics they want to hit on so they don't go too long past that time limit. So I think it's important if they're making a lesson or a video even for parents to, know what topics you're going to talk about beforehand. So especially if you're someone that tends to talk a lot, you want to make sure you get those topics in quickly. And then also making sure they do understand how to use those accessibility features within the Screencastify or whatever video product you're using. Make sure that you're using those for your audience. And any, editing tools. Your background's always important. Showing your face is important. Giving feedback to students. If you're doing that, it's important to turn your camera on. So if I'm giving my students feedback, they see me and hear me. And that's very, very impactful for the kids.
Thank you, Kathleen. And thank you all. That does put us right at our time. Wanted to just say once again how appreciative, William, Kathleen, we are of you coming here and sharing your expertise with us. Audience, for joining us after a day of school. We, again, would love for you to reach out, tweet us at Screencastify, send us an email, hello@screencastify.com. There is a link on your screen. If you are interested, go ahead and give it a click to learn more. But once again, thank you all so much. William, Kathleen, we appreciate it. We hope you all have a great rest of your day. And thanks again for joining us. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Thank you.